was late getting on. It just would not launch for me. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm glad that you're with us today. I'm sure Keish did a really good job, and Jan, I'm doing some housekeeping just to let you know. Did you guys talk about the amount of time and all of that they would have to spend with us?
Today, no, we haven't done that part
Okay,
yet.
all right. So once again, welcome. Glad you're with us. Keish, I think, gave you a really good preamble as to where we are. We just wanted to let you know we're really excited for you to be with us today. Wanted to let you know in advance that this is a long session. Most of our sessions have been for 1 hour. This will be a 2-hour session. It's jam-packed with a lot of information that you will need to know. So if you cannot stay with us for the duration of the session, then when you do leave, can you please just type inside of the chat when you leave and your email address, because we want to be able to award you the PD hours, and the attendance section is actually at the end of the session, and there is an additional task for additional professional development hours. So if you do have to leave prior to 3:30, then if you can just put that in the chat so that we'll know that you're going, and we can award you that 1 PD hour. And for those of you that are staying there, we really do appreciate you guys as well. You will get the 2 hours of PD. And also, if you complete the task, which is a demonstration lesson that we have uploaded to YouTube, so you can actually watch me teaching a lesson asynchronously, and hopefully showing some good examples of what you can actually do in your lesson based on the things that you're going to be learning with us today. So just wanted to say that up front, that it is a protracted lesson. So if you wish to stay, then we'll be more than willing and happy to have you guys. So let's jump right into our learning intention and success criteria for today. So Jan's going to show you on the screen that today's session is about learning to create a well-structured asynchronous lesson. An asynchronous lesson is a pre-recorded lesson that you will send ahead of time to your students. It is not a session that you are going to conduct face-to-face like we are, but rather it's a lesson that you pre-record, send to them, and then you have an opportunity to monitor and provide feedback once you assign those assessments. Now, teachers, Keish might have mentioned, and I might have missed it, but I want to reiterate that we are moving into new learning. Up until this time, it was the expectation that you were conducting review lessons and kind of in a holding pattern to some extent. However, we are now moving into new learning. As we move into new learning, then is additional contact time that you will have. And in addition to the contact time that you have, you might not be able to do all of that face-to-face. So when we talk about new learning, the expectation is that students are exposed to at least a half hour of language arts daily, a half hour of mathematics daily, and then science and social studies 1 hour spread throughout the week. So that is for primary school teachers. On the flip side, for middle school, it is the expectation that they are exposed to all of their core subjects every day for at least 40 minutes. And then they are also exposed for 60 minutes of foreign language, and also an additional hour of each of the on-core subjects that they are in. And so with that being said, you cannot conduct all of those lessons face-to-face. It's not conducive for homes that do not have multiple devices and have multiple children. So that's the whole reason why the learning intention is important. And the TIB, I wanted to explain that, because asynchronous is not just something additional to do. You have to be very intentional about why you're doing it based on the learners that you have and their individual issues that they might have at home, or challenges around access to technology. So with that,
Tanisha, we do have a few high school teachers with us again today.
Okay, so high schoolers, you have your own agenda, meaning whatever your principals have already set. So I just want to be clear that those two things around the 30 minutes, the 40 minutes, the structure and expectations is directly addressed to those primary and middle school teachers that we have with us today. So high schoolers, keep going with the flow of what your school year has established, okay? So for success criteria, we have 5 of them today. The first one is we're going to identify the elements of a well-designed on-demand lesson. The second is that you can determine how to get your pre-recorded lessons to your students. You might have these bang-up lessons and then you're like, oh, how am I going to send them to them? The file's too big or they can't access it. So we're going to give you some strategies and some tips on what you can do for that. Our third criteria that we're going to look at today is to determine how you're going to monitor that. Keisha's going to walk you through how do you give feedback feedback after you've recorded these lessons. One of the downsides of the asynchronous lesson is that you're not able to give feedback or FA, some sort of formative assessment in the moment, and you can actually see what they're doing and then respond to it. So she's going to walk you through, well, what are some other alternatives and ways that you can get feedback to create a complete learning cycle. The idea is that you're not just assigning these lessons and then they go off into oblivion, and then they do it or they don't do it, or you have no way of actually noticing and providing feedback around the quality of what it is that they're submitting. So we're going to walk you through feedback and how you can ensure that that whole feedback cycle is conducted. And then our fourth criteria for today is how do you purposefully embed management tools into your lesson? What are you doing? What signs and symbols can you use in that lesson to ensure that the parents know when to offer assistance and not, for example? Because as we move into new learning and we're going to be providing opportunities for them to demonstrate understanding, we need, when we live in an SPG world, for the demonstrations of their knowing and doing has to be work that they are doing independently. In an SPG world, it is about what they are doing independently when you're thinking about assigning grades and assessment and that type of thing. So we want to demonstrate to you today some management tools that will actually, you can embed into your presentation, which will help the parents to know what level of assistance to provide to their son or daughter. And then our final criteria for today, was that it, Jim? We have one more? Nope, yep, that's it. Thank you. So what we would like for you today, we would like to engage with you in a activity. If you look at the top part of our screen on the left-hand side, you will see this all throughout the presentation, and it's a good idea for you to have when you create your lessons, is that you're walking them through each one of these success criteria in each portion of the lesson. So our example, you can see on the top of your screen, I can identify the elements of a well-designed on-demand lesson. That was the first criteria that you would have seen on this slide previous. So what we would like for you to do to engage with us, and we're going to use this to our phones or another device to assess prior knowledge, we want you to go to the internet site that you see on the screen. The URL is menti.com. So if you can get your phone, I'm going to use my phone as well. And if you can go to the internet, and we want you to type in menti.com. So I'm going to do that on mine as you do that on yours. So once you type in menti.com, I'm going to hold my phone up to the screen. You should see a site that looks like that, Mentimeter. Once you come to that particular screen, if you can type in the 6 digits that you see on your screen, 569288, and I want you to press submit. So go to menti.com. Once you go to menti.com, I want you to press submit. And then we would like for you to think of, what do you believe are 5 elements that an effective asynchronous lesson will have? So if you look up on the screen, you go to menti.com, you're going to use the code 569288. And we would like for you to suggest, this is completely anonymous, so don't feel inhibited to put in any suggestions that you might have. We want you to list, there we go, here we go. We want you to list 5 elements that you think an effective asynchronous lesson will have, and then I want you to press submit. So I'm going to do that as well while you are doing yours. Let's see. So once you press submit, we should be able to see your suggestions coming up on the screen. So it is 21 of us on right now, so we should be able to get quite a few. There we go. We see the responses coming in. Keep them coming. Make sure you press submit, and you can put multiple responses if you want. So you can, if you think of more than 5, then submit your first 5. So teachers, as you see, this is refreshing in real time, okay? This is a really good way when you're creating a synchronous lesson for you to assess prior knowledge at the beginning of the lesson. The great thing about this tool is that the word that is used the most or contributed the most is centralized in the middle of the screen, and it is also the largest. Okay, it comes out the large. So the more time someone uses that particular word, that word grows bigger. So if all of us just type in feedback, 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 feedback will become the biggest word. So we can see right now that most of you think that an asynchronous lesson should include some type of feedback. Some people think it should have clear instructions, organized, PowerPoints. Let's see what else we have. Engaging students. It should have examples, group work. Ooh, I'd like to see how we do group work asynchronously. That would be really cool. Clear audio, website, sequential, email. Good, fun. One person said fun. Pictures, tests. Absolutely. So we're able to see already that you have some idea regarding what should be some effective elements of asynchronous learning. So thank you so much. We're going to have a chance at the end of the session to redo this activity to see if any of your thinking has changed, and we can look at what you thought at the beginning of the session. And then hopefully if Jan and Keisha and I have done some good teaching, then you will be able to add some of those ideas to your particular thinking. Okay, so and teachers, just as a FYI, you can do this in your classroom as well. I do it in my room all the time. I use Wordle, but Jana had introduced us to Menti, and it's great because it's online. But Wordle is another way. Before you teach a lesson, you can use an activity like this to assess prior knowledge and keep that. The children can do it individually as well and keep their own individual Wordle or Cloud or word balloon. And then at the end of the unit that you taught, allow them to do it again and then compare. You can kind of track their growing over time or their learning over time. All right, Jan, let's go on.
Mish, can I just add that the Menti, actually, as a teacher, you will go onto mentimeter.com, and you'll also find that it has other activities you can do with students. So not just this Wordle type activity. They have other formative assessment tools that can be used.
So Mentimeter is the site that you would go to sign up for this particular program. Free. I think it's free. And then you can actually go on to the menti.com is where the children would go and put in the code. Okay, so Mentimeter. Wordle is the other one, WORDLE. That's free. That's what I use. And Jan has introduced us also to this. And as Keisha's right, there's some others that are on there that we can use. All right, let's move on. So we're going to quickly look through, you're welcome. We're going to quickly look through some effective elements of asynchronous learning. So Jan, if you can pop us back to the slides. And definitely some of the things that you guys came up with, keep on going, Jan, just go ahead and roll them. Some of the things that you guys came up with is absolutely right, that they are well structured. Okay, well structured and well organized with a consistent format and easy to follow. Easy to follow because less is more. Teachers, do not think and buy into the idea that you can cover everything that you were covering in your class in this type of remote learning environment. Okay, do not bombard the students with too much. Less is more. We're looking at quality over quantity. So it has to be well structured, very easy for them to follow. So if you're sending asynchronous lessons, let the children be able to anticipate the flow of the lesson so that you're not doing this one time, then they're bouncing over to and they're all over the place. Let's try to make sure that the format is very consistent, that you have clear instructions. That's very, very important, especially since you're not going to be there to be able to deliver the instructions, but those instructions should be used by dual coding. Dual coding is the idea that you actually say what it is that you want them to do and type or show in another way. So dual coding means that you're presenting information in many different modalities. So make sure if you're giving instructions orally, they should also be visual on the slide. Give frequent opportunities for monitoring and feedback, and Keisha's going to walk you guys through that. Very, very important. Make sure that the tasks are manageable and relevant. They have to be taken from the curriculum. No Mickey Mouse stuff that you saw on Teachers Pay Teachers or Pinterest. If it is not aligned to your scale and it is not aligned to your curriculum, that is for another place and time, not for the 6 weeks that we have to bring them up to as much of the content that they can learn in term 2 and term 1. That's the expectation, that the new content that you are exposing them to comes from from term 2 and term 1. So if you only have 6 weeks, you don't have time for Mickey Mouse activities. You need to get into the curriculum and you should be using your skills. And all of the tasks, and most of the tasks should be completed independently. We're going to show you how you can build a management tool right into the platform, right into the PowerPoint presentation that will let them know what has to be done on their own, what has to be done with the assistance of a parent. And finally, you want to make sure that most of the tasks that you send should be completed within the lesson duration, okay? So what we're going to do is at the end of this session, we're actually going to give you information about a YouTube video. I actually did a demonstration lesson. I tried to include all of those elements that you saw on the slide previous so that you can have a good exemplar of what these quality asynchronous lessons should look like, and we'll have a chance to talk to you a little bit more about that. So finally, before I turn it over to Keisha, this is just a definition of what asynchronous learning is. It's an environment in which teachers create learning experiences for students to work at their own pace. It is self-paced and take the time to absorb the content. So once again, it's not that face-to-face. It is a pre-recorded opportunity for students and families to use on demand in a structure that fits within the time constraints of their families, okay? So I'm gonna turn it off to Keisha, where she's gonna talk about how you need to consider your learners before you plan anything.
Thank you, Tamisha. Okay. So now we're going to think about the types of learners we have in our classes. And so we're going to start by thinking about that there's near the end of school, there's last few days when we have our school picnics. And so we're at the beach and it's your favorite time, it's your time for water duty. And so when you get in the water and you do the countdown and the children go in, you have some children that are swimmers. They just run and dive right in and they're good to go. They have a blast. And then you have your group of pumpkins that are waders. They are comfortable in the water, but they're not going into the deep. They're only going to stay where they can stand, and they might cling to you or, just want your help or want you to be near them. Then finally, we have our drowners. Those students who are just afraid of the water and, cannot make out on their own. And so when we think about these types of students we have at the beach, we can compare them to the remote learners that we have, or just learners, period, that we have in the classroom. And so when we do this, our swimmers are the students that just dive right in, they get all the work done, and they successfully navigate the technology, okay? Our waders are our students who attempt to get on with the task, but they always need help. They want you to help them with the questions or with the work, or they need assistance with the technology that is being used. And then we have our drowners who just can't even get started. They need help with everything, okay? They are drowning. They can't keep up with the pace, not sure about the work, and they're also, not sure with how to navigate the technology. And so as we go through this presentation, I'm gonna speak more towards to the swimmers, waders, and drowners. We're gonna have some activities that we're gonna do that's gonna use this analogy, okay? And so we're going to do our considerations for planning, because when we are planning for our asynchronous lessons, we have to keep these learners in mind because we want to ensure that we're providing opportunities for everyone. So this brings us to our next success criteria, which is I can determine how to get my pre-recorded lessons to students. And so this is going to be part of our implementation, which speaks to the how. And so this means we have to start thinking about how will students access the lesson. So once I plan and record my lesson, how will the students access it? We have to think about how will I monitor the lesson. So while the students have it and they have their assignment, how am I going to monitor this? And finally, how and when will I provide feedback to students? Because feedback and monitoring is just as important in remote learning as it is in the actual classroom. So let's start by talking about accessibility of lessons. So firstly, how will I record my instructional lessons? So we have a few ways we can do this. We can do this using Zoom, which most of us have become familiar with using right now. And so with Zoom, there's a record feature, and it actually allows you to record the screen alone without you having all of the participants in the screen. So this is an option for you. Loom is another option which allows you to just record anything that's going on in your screen, so you don't need an audience. And so Loom is easy to use. And if you go onto the Loom website and register using your MOED account, you can actually get the pro features for free. So make sure that if you do decide to go the route of Loom, you register using your MOED site to access the pro version for free. We have our smart board. So there is smart board technology that can be used as well to record. And Tamisha will speak to this a little more later on, but you can actually download your smart board software onto your computer and use it in your classroom. And there are also a ton of other screencast recording platforms that can be used to record your lesson. So once you've successfully recorded your lesson, how do you share it? And so email is an easy way to share it, either sharing the whole video or sharing the link. You can also use WeTransfer, which is quite helpful because you'll recognize that if you use Zoom to record, it actually saves the whole video file. This file can be very large, and sometimes you're unable to email it to students. So in this case, you would have to use WeTransfer to email that to students, or you could upload the whole video to YouTube. A benefit of Loom is that once you record, it actually provides a link. So the video is kept in the Loom platform, and it provides you a link to your lesson. And so that's easy to email or just add or upload to any other program or learning management system. And so finally, there are other learning management systems which we are going to talk about today during this presentation. And then we also have the option of just using pre-recorded videos. And not all of us are comfortable with recording ourselves, right? Yes, it's great for students to have a video of us actually teaching because of that familiarity, with us. However, there is nothing wrong with using pre-recorded videos that can be easily found on the internet. So Khan Academy, for example, has instructional videos. YouTube has a ton of videos. I'm sure any topic you type in to YouTube, you should be able to find an instructional video that matches for you to include in your lesson, BBC Bite Size, and any other resources that you know of, okay? So remember, if you are not comfortable yet recording your own instructional lesson, you can find some pre-recorded ones to upload to your asynchronous lesson. So now we're gonna just start to talk a bit about the learning management systems. And we have been seeing plenty of these being used across the island. And so these learning management systems are very helpful to educators, okay? They can help you with management and organization of your materials. They can also track student progress. They provide two-way communication, right, between you and your students. So they allow you to send instructional videos or assign tasks to your students, and then they also allow students to respond back to you with their answers, okay? So you have that two-way communication. They allow you to deliver instructions, set assignments, organize materials, track progress, and also provide feedback. So they're very helpful in this environment. So we're going to move on to a short activity using these platforms. So these are some learning management systems, or not even, these are just some platforms that we have seen being used quite often in remote learning. And we want you to figure out which one of these is the odd one out. So let's move on to our next thing. So once we finish with our implementation and accessibility, once students have that work or the assignment, we then have to look at monitoring and feedback. So our next success criteria is, I can determine how to monitor and give feedback to the students after the recorded lesson. So monitoring is very important. We want to monitor because we want to keep track of students' participation and their performance. We want to check how often are students logging in, or are they doing the work? So if I set a task on Monday and it's due on Friday, but by Wednesday I check and no one has submitted anything, it may be a reason for me to go back and check and say, okay, well, did the email or however I sent the instructions out, was that successful? Were my instructions clear? Did I include the due date, right? So we want to monitor because it helps to guide us. We want to see how students are doing. It can guide instruction because then we can look and see, okay, some work's coming in, we see that quite a few students are making the same error. That can help us to then know how to address that. Maybe you want to address it in small groups. Maybe it's a misconception that is seen across the whole class, and it causes you to have to go back and do some reteaching. It allows for better student support. It promotes communication with students. It also helps with motivation and maintaining relationships. So monitoring is very important.
Keish, can I just add something?
Sure.
Teachers, don't forget that even though we're in remote learning, we are still in school, and the systems and processes that should be in place should be maintained even though we're teaching and they're learning remotely. And the system I think of with the monitoring is the MTSS process. As you are monitoring students and you're figuring out that this particular child hasn't come on, it's been weeks, or the work has been lackluster, and I know this is a student that can perform, it is incumbent upon you to make sure that the school leader is aware of the challenges that you are experiencing as you're trying to monitor this student. Oh, I haven't seen Johnny for a week and a half, or the work that he's handing in is not quality work, or anything like that. Have a conversation with the school leader, which should then trigger the school leader to have a conversation with the school counselor. At the end of the day, the school leader is responsible for teaching and learning on that campus. So please let them know so that they can start to put some support systems in place, whether that is reaching out to the school counselor or then enacting some sort of the MTSS process, okay? So just don't think that your students, okay, so John is not showing up, oh well, John is not showing up. No, let someone who can do something about him not showing up, let them know so that the MTSS process can still happen. So that I just wanted you to remember that those things should still be in place. Thanks for that, Keish.
Thank you. Yes, no, thank you. All right. So effective monitoring. One thing you want to do is to set deadlines that are realistic and manageable. Okay, and we want to ensure that these deadlines are manageable for you as the teacher and the student. So for example, if you are, say, a middle school or high school English teacher and you have several classes, you do not want to set your deadline for an essay for all your classes on the same day, because then it's too much for you to manage when it comes to marking and providing feedback. You also want to be cognizant of the fact that students are receiving tasks or information from multiple teachers. And so we want to make sure that we are not overwhelming them, because during this time, as Tamisha started out by saying, less is more. And so we want things to be meaningful and realistic, but we don't want to overwhelm students or ourselves. We want to check our email regularly, or the learning management system that you're using. So you need to set a schedule up for yourself to say, when am I going to check in? So if this assignment was set Monday and is due on Friday, maybe I'm going to check on Tuesday, or maybe I'm going to check on Wednesday and Friday, or Tuesday and Thursday. You can set your times or your schedule for when you're going to check and monitor along the way. Because if not, if we don't start to set deadlines for ourselves and set a schedule, you'll find that there's like the line between him and work becomes blurred, right? Because you find that you're just at the computer, just working right into the night, answering parent emails, talking with teachers, doing research, planning, marking, and so you're gonna burn yourself out. So we have to remember our own self-care during this process. You want to make note of student participation and performance, right? And so as Tamisha mentioned, that lack of participation may be more than we think. It could just be a student having trouble accessing technology, or there could be some unmet social and emotional needs going on with these students. So still follow the same processes that you would normally do. Decide when and how you'll give feedback, and so that when ties in to setting up your schedule. You might have some eager students who send that assignment in by Tuesday, and on Wednesday, they're hitting you up because they haven't seen a response. So when you set that deadline or you set the task, you can also tell students when you're going to give your feedback as well, okay? We want to be consistent with what we do, but we also want to ensure that it's manageable for us. And then we also have Oh, that was our last one. Okay, so effective monitoring, make sure you hit all of those things. So just a quick reminder, because our next activity is going to be using the terms again of swimmer, wader, and droner. So remember, your swimmer dives in, get the work handed in, they successfully navigate the technology. Our wader attempts to get on with the task, but they need help. They want you to hold their hand through everything. And then the droner just is having trouble altogether. They can't even get started, okay? So our next activity is going to talk about a scenario that might happen while you're monitoring. So imagine that while you're monitoring, you notice that your swimmers have all posted. Your waders, you only have one response from a wader. So only one wader has posted and your droners are silent. What would you do? So we're thinking about what would we do for each student. So right now, we're going to break you into breakout rooms. And so you're going to be in your rooms for about 2 minutes to have a discussion about what would you do for these students. Now, if you have not experienced the breakout room before, what's going to happen is Jana is setting us up in breakout rooms, and the Zoom allows you to create breakout rooms anonymously, whereas the computer will choose the groups, or as a teacher, you can set your groupings. But for today, we're going to let the computer do it anonymously. So a window is going to come up on your screen inviting you to join a breakout room, and it will tell you your room number. If you are in rooms 1 and 4, you are going to be discussing how would you address the swimmers who have all posted. If you are in rooms 2 and 5, you're going to discuss how you would address the waders, that one wader that posted. And rooms 3 and 6, you will address the droners. So you're going to have 2 minutes to discuss this in the room, and then we want someone from your group to be ready to share when we come back together as a whole group, okay? So one more time, rooms 1 and 4 are talking about the swimmers. Rooms 2 and 5 are going to discuss addressing the wader, and rooms 3 and 6 are going to address the droners. Do we have any questions before we break out? And you can unmute or type it in the chat. Okay, so Jana, please send us into our breakout rooms. Click join once you see the box. Yes.
I was in the other group of drowners.
Okay. Our first one, our swimmers, basically what you have to do for our swimmers, we have to acknowledge them and also challenge them. So either extend them or challenge them to go back and correct what they've handed in, or to, explain a little further on how they got to their answer. Our waders, they need that support, okay? They need you to encourage them and provide them support. And then our drowners, not only do they need support and encouragement, but they also need investigation. So Kim, you are spot on. We want to investigate, why are you drowning? What is going on? What are your needs? Are they technology related? Are they academic? Do I need to pull in learning support? Do I need to pull in the counselor because it's a social emotional need? And so this takes us into feedback, okay? So that was all about monitoring. With feedback, once you've monitored and the deadline has come, you want to give feedback to support students' learning and progress. First thing about feedback, we want to decide, how are we going to give it? Are we going to give it to the whole class? Are we going to give it in groups or even pairs, or are we going to give it to individual students? Giving individual feedback is quite helpful, but it's not something that we can do, or you can, but it's up to you. But if you try to give feedback to every individual student for every single assignment or task, it can become overwhelming, okay? And so we need to decide how we're going to give feedback. Then we also need to decide when we're going to give feedback. Are you going to give it midway through the task, or are you going to wait till the deadline and give it after the task? Sometimes you may spoil it for other students if you give it midway through, because if you're on a platform, say it's a blog and people are responding and you start to confirm what the answer is, it kind of cuts off the thinking of the students who have not submitted their answers already. And finally, we want to talk about setting office hours, because as we said, we do not want to overwhelm ourselves. We are in a time of new learning for teachers as well. This is new learning for everyone. And as we said, you're working day and night. Parents and students are emailing you all through the day, all through the evening, and you do not have to feel pressured to respond to every email as it comes. So what you want to do is, in advance, be clear with your students and parents about your office hours. Define when you're going to be available to be contacted, right? So whether it be office hours on Zoom or office hours by phone, you need to set your time so that parents and students know when they can access you or when they can expect you to be responding to emails or phone calls, okay? So we want to ensure that you maintain your work-life balance. And so finally, we want to talk about how are you going to assign work and students submit their work to you. And most people are going to use different management tools or different platforms to do this. So we're going to do a quick poll. On the screen, you see a whole selection of tools that are being used across the island, okay? And you can look at Google Drive, and that's what we equate that to Google Classroom in the poll, right? But you'll see email, Facebook, PowerSchool, Seesaw, WhatsApp. Once the poll comes up on your screen, we want you to select which are you currently using to assign work to students and receive it, because we want to get an idea of what is being used throughout the system. So go ahead with the poll.
The heck is the pool?
Okay, do you see it on your screen?
Mm-hmm.
Should be there now. All right. So just select which one you use. And so far, we're seeing a variety.
Let's see what they come up with today. Yesterday we had an interesting poll.
Today, I think we have a little more variety.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, we had more people using Google Drive. Okay.
Look at that.
Class stages.
Yeah, so we'll give you about 10 more seconds.
And if you use more than one, then just try to select more than one. We're just trying to see. And we'll also be using this information to decide what type of further support that you might need around some of these platforms as we go forward with other PD opportunities.
Okay, all right, thank you. So as you see on your screen, email seems to be the most popular right now with our group of participants in this session. But we also see that we have people frequently using Class Dojo. That always seems to come up in the higher range. WhatsApp, Frog, we have some GoFormative. Google Drive is up there, 31% in this. So we see a wide range in this pool. What we do want to ensure is that whatever you're using right now, you try to be consistent. It's even better if the whole system was using the same thing, but if a school chooses to use the same, ask all teachers to use the same platform, that's also helpful, because as a parent, if I have 3 students in one primary school, it gets a little hectic with me trying to figure out, my P6 student, their teacher's using GoFormative, my P4 student, they're using Class Dojo, and my P1 child, their teacher's using Seesaw. It becomes a lot to manage as a parent, and to get used to. So, if schools, and I know some schools, because we've had people share in these sessions, some have chosen a platform for their schools, so that is helpful. But whatever you are using, try to be consistent so that students don't have to learn how to manage too many different platforms.
And eventually we want to move as a system. Keish has Schoology up there. We definitely want to move as a system of having one central platform. So hopefully Schoology will be our choice, and we'll all be using that, and it'll be a way for parents to be able to access it no matter what school their child goes to. So they'll be hearing more information about that soon as well.
Thank you. Okay, so what we want you to think about and we'll just take 1 or 2 responses because we just discussed implementation, which is also that accessibility, monitoring, and feedback. If anyone would like to just, come in and share something about the platform they're using and how it supports implementation, monitoring, and feedback. Right. Anyone else? I'll just give 5 more seconds if anyone else wants to come in and talk about, their success, how we design an asynchronous lesson. And so I'm going to turn it back over to Tamisha and Jana, who are going to take us through the next part of this presentation. Thank you, everybody, for your participation so far.
Thank you, Keisha.
You're welcome.
So now that we've thought about implementation and monitoring and feedback, we're actually going to look at the actual creation and designing of an asynchronous lesson. Our next success criteria, you'll see it in the top left-hand corner of your screen. I can purposefully embed management tools into my lesson. So again, we're going to look at the 3-part lesson. There is a PD session that has been offered last week, and they have been offering it this week, and I believe it's one more tomorrow. That's called Creating a Well-Structured Online Lesson. And one of the things that we talk about is that there needs to be a 3-part lesson every single time, whether it's synchronous or asynchronous. We want you to have a 3-part lesson. And the first part of that lesson is a beginning, opening, or an engaged portion of the lesson. This is the part that stimulates the students' thinking, accesses prior knowledge. It actually is a part where you can review and practice skills in that part, or model skills, sorry. Then we have the middle work period and explore section. This is where the students are doing a lot of the work on their own, and the teacher is just monitoring what's happening. Students are working independently to investigate, to solve problems, to collect information, to make decisions, right? So we're giving the students time to just grapple with the information that we expose them to in the beginning. And then we have the ending, closing, and explain section of the lesson, which of course we know is the ending that's going to wrap up all of the learning. It's going to help them to clarify what it is that you were doing through the lesson. We kind of want to relate it back to the success criteria of the lesson to see if we met those objectives. We also want to give them some sort of reflective activity so that when you're moving into the next lesson the next day, they're able to connect both. We also want to clear up any misconceptions in this area, and this is also a time where the teacher may be able to expose them to what's coming next. Right now, I'm going to give it back over to Tamisha, and she's actually going to talk about a materials checklist.
So teachers, so far, Keisha and Jan has given us all of the how-to, what should we be thinking about as we begin to plan for these asynchronous lessons, from how we're going to monitor, how we're going to provide feedback, how we're going to structure the lesson to ensure that it has those 3 parts that was just discussed. Now we're starting to shift into, okay, so you have all of those things figured out. What is it that you actually want to put into your presentation, your PowerPoint presentation, or whatever tool you're going to use to get them this information? How do you want to lay it out, and what are some things you need to think about to make sure that they're always at the forefront of the student's mind as they're going through your lesson? So your checklist of materials that you should include should be a checklist that's going to be for students and then thinking about you as the teacher. So first thing you want to do is make sure that on that checklist of materials, that slide that you're going to make sure that is in each one of these asynchronous lessons is your PowerPoint presentation. Okay, you're gonna make sure that you have a nice clean PowerPoint presentation. If you are going to use any web addresses, any websites that they're going to need, make sure that we're going to talk a lot in this presentation about embedding those actual videos right into the PowerPoint, but also as an addition is making sure that the URLs are in the notes section, just in case the student is not able to launch that particular video that you have embedded inside of your PowerPoint. A teacher was actually showing me this during the office hours earlier today, that she thought she had embedded it, but when she clicked on it, it wasn't launching so that the children can see it, and so I can see it. And so I just reminded her to make sure that that URL as a plan B is typed right into the notes of that particular slide so that there's another alternative for them to access that particular video. Writing instruments. Let them know right there on this slide, you're going to need a pen, a pencil, 2 crayons, a red crayon, a pink crayon. Of course, I'm a primary school teacher, so that's what I'm thinking about. What are all of the materials that they are going to need in order to write with? What manipulatives will they need? Now, some of the teachers that I've worked with, they've already sent manipulatives home just before we move to remote learning, so they have base 10 blocks. They might have this type of materials. However, if they do not, you have to be creative about, well, what type of manipulatives can they use? Are paper clips in plenty at the house? Can they use them for TANs? Can they use Q-tips for the wands, for example? So you got to be thinking about what is it that they actually have in their homes that they can use. You still want to, especially for mathematics, you want to go through those 3 phases of the CPA model, the concrete, the pictorial, and the abstract. They might not have those concrete manipulatives, so think about what else you can use. Let them know the lesson length ahead of time. These are very busy lives that these children are a part of, with moms and dads that are also at home working remotely potentially. So let them know what is the investment of time that they would have to make. This lesson is going to take 15 minutes. This lesson is going to take 30 minutes. Make sure you state that on the slide. The next thing you want to make is a very clear outline of the level of parental support that they can actually expect to give. So Jan's going to walk you through a stoplight system that we are suggesting that can be used that will say, okay, parents, on this particular slide, don't help. On the next slide, you can give a little bit of help. On this slide, come on in and help. Let them know how you're going to give feedback. Is it going to be, are you going to send them a WhatsApp response to what they submitted? Are you going to be responding by email? Are you going to be responding through GoFormative? If they've used a YouTube video, YouTube, are you going to be commenting there? You can make your YouTube channel, just as a FYI, private, so that only the students and their parents have access to it. So that's another way in which you can provide feedback. Any worksheets that they're going to need or supplemental materials, you might send those worksheets, for example, through Class Dojo, and they can print them out and then have them ready for that particular asynchronous lesson. Another idea is to also make sure all the time that on one of those slides, they have a way in which they can contact you. Yes, you might be, especially for primary school teachers, you are surly and hurly their teacher, but as things start to change, they might not always be in that same home. So they might be of Nana and Papa's on the weekend, or that with Daddy from Monday to Tuesday, and Mommy from on the other days. And so as these asynchronous lessons are lessons that they're kind of grabbing and going with, then whatever home that they are in, that person needs to know how to contact you. Okay, so always make sure that on one of these slides, you have a way for them to contact you. And then for teachers, a simple thing, make sure each of your slides are numbered so that you can tell the children if you need to rewind it, you can go back to slide number 8. That's when I begin demonstrating, blah, blah, blah. Make sure that you give very clear instructions. Dual coding, the idea that they should be both verbal and written. Some of our little sweet peas in primary school can't read. So if you send them a PowerPoint presentation or asynchronous, they're going to need an adult there. So make sure that you can actually do this. The presentation I saw the teacher do earlier today, she was doing the audio on the PowerPoint as the information was coming up. So that was really cool. And then monitor and also let them know and think for yourself how you intend on getting feedback to them. So Jan's going to talk to you about some student norms, that slide that you also want to establish.
Okay, so looking at student norms, we want to make sure that just as in the classroom you have norms as to how things operate, you want to make sure that even in synchronous and asynchronous lessons that there are student norms that are set up and they are reiterated from session to session to session. So once the slide is created, you can use it over and over again. So some things you may want to consider, these stars we're going to use moving forward in this session, only because Tamisha has used them within her demo lesson to let us know that, you know what, these are things that at the end of this lesson, you're going to have to submit to me. So you may have 3 or 4 tasks within the lesson, but I only want task number 2 submitted to me. And you, of course, will give information on how that's going to be submitted. All right. So if I'm using a star today, I don't want to use a question mark tomorrow. I don't want to use a smiley face the next day. It always needs to be a star. And we're just going to keep hammering him consistency, consistency, consistency. You want to encourage them to find a quiet space to work so that they're not distracted by anybody and they can actually focus on what's happening. You also want to encourage them to use the pause or rewind button if necessary. So you're going to let them know, boys and girls, there are times that I'm going to ask you to pause the video because I need you to do some work, and then you can come back and press play or whatnot. But there are also times that things are going to happen within the house. I don't know, maybe some emergency, or the student needs to go to the restroom, or maybe it's just before lunchtime and mom calls them for lunch. It's okay. It's okay to pause. It's okay to rewind. If you can get some information, just let them know that those options are available to them. And then we want to encourage them to make sure that they complete the entire lesson. That's going to be important. Also, if you see this symbol, and you can use any symbol you like, we just chose to use this one. But if you see this symbol, you may want to write this piece of information down because it's going to be important for you later on with whatever task it is that I'm asking you to do. So if this is a symbol you're going to use for write this down, then every single session you need to use the same symbol. We don't want to confuse the children. Then there are going to be times when the students are doing work and they have questions, or they're stuck, or maybe somebody in the household doesn't even know how to answer or help them to mitigate that, right? So we want to let them know, well, if you do end up having questions and you just can't figure it out, here's what you need to do in order to contact me. Follow my order. It's going to be important, especially for the younger ones. You don't want them jumping all over the place within the lesson. So encourage them, let them know, just follow my order, go from beginning to end of the lesson, because there's a reason that we do things from the beginning to end the way that I've set it up. Okay. And then you're going to encourage them that at any point within the lesson, if they need a break, it's okay to take a break. All right. Just reiterating and re-encouraging them, and let them know, go ahead and press the pause button, take a break, and come back. And then Tamisha already alluded to this. This is the help. So you will let them know, boys and girls, remember, whenever you see this stoplight, this is letting you know that the level of parental help you can have, or even from your siblings, right? So if we have an X on the red, that means that you cannot get any help whatsoever. I need you to do this completely independently. I do not need your parents, they're helping you. I need to see what it is that you know. Maybe I'm formatively assessing them at that point. If it's on the yellow, then okay, it's fine. We would love for you to try it first on your own, but if you're really struggling, then it's okay to get some support around that in the yellow area. And green is wide open. You can get as much help as you need on this. It's okay. So this just helps parents also to understand when to help and when to back off, right? So if this is something that you're going to implement, again, consistency is important. The parents will eventually get to know and understand what it is that they can and cannot do to help. So they may say, oh, I see there's a red and I see there's a yellow, so maybe I need to stay back a little bit more this time. Another thing we're encouraging people to use is timers. So we may say, okay, you have 2 minutes to do this activity, right? There are timers online, and these are ones that we just took, for example. The reason that there are different pictures is because we want to change it up. We don't want the same one over and over, and then the children become bored, right? We don't want monotony. So switch it up, keep them hooked, keep them engaged. I wonder what timer we're going to use today. There are also timers that have music with them. That's pretty cool, because if the students have to walk away for any reason, if you say you have a minute to go and get this and come back, then they can hear the music, and then you're going to hear another demonstration as the music's running, as the time, is running out, the music begins to die out, and you hear that in 1 second. Also, there are timers that don't have music. That's going to be important, because sometimes you might say you have 2 minutes to write down an intro paragraph to something, and having music is not effective at that time because the students will become distracted. So here's an example of a 1 minute clock that has, that has music attached to it. And as you can see, Tamisha talked earlier about the PowerPoint or any URL being actually embedded right into the PowerPoint. So I didn't have to come out of this and take it to another screen. So this is what we did. And also, there's a way that you can set it so that it can start at a certain point within the video, and we'll show that to you later. So just have a quick listen. Okay, so you could hear that the music got much softer as it went towards the 1 second. Okay. Sorry, forgive me for that. All right, so let's just continue. It will be on my turn, right? Okay. Use a symbol. So again, we have the stoplight. Make sure you use it. If you're gonna use anything, use them consistently. I can't say that enough. Just so that everyone gets used to this is what's happening, and it makes your life as a teacher much easier. And then you know, okay, 90% chance that what I'm getting back from these students is something that they actually did do on their end, because a lot of times we're not sure, right? Then this is the write this down note. Again, pause and rewind button. We have also included the play button. And then we have the start to say, this is what I need submitted, all right? Then we're looking for opportunities for movement. We want you to, in every session, give the students an opportunity to move some way, somehow. However, that movement needs to be connected to the content that's actually being taught. So a good way for that, especially for the younger ones, is to do a scavenger hunt. So if you're studying the core sound, they could go around the house, find 3 things that begin with core and take pictures and upload them. And then, you know, they can actually send a note that says what these words actually, or what these pictures actually are. You can also use YouTube songs or videos based on the content. For the younger ones, Jack Hartman is a channel worth subscribing to. He does a lot with numeracy, literacy. It's definitely engaging music that's gonna hook the children. And Tamisha actually uses one in her demonstration lesson. And then we have play games connected to content. So if we're gonna play games with the students, again, please make sure it's connected to the content. We just don't want them doing these things for the sake of doing it. Let's be intentional about everything that we do, okay? And then also they can draw pictures, create videos, TikTok videos for the older ones, etc. Okay? Just get them moving in every lesson as much as possible. Misha?
Thank you, Jan. So I think it's really important to reiterate over and over, teachers, that as you create these asynchronous opportunities, you want to make sure that they can stay within your recording the whole time, that they do not have to leave the recording to do anything but actually a task. So it's an opportunity for them to just press stop or pause, do the task, come right back into the presentation. So we are strongly encouraging that you embed any songs, stories, lessons right into the PowerPoint presentation. So this is an actual YouTube video. I love this book. I read it to my students all the time. The pages are falling off. And so this was a comprehension lesson that I can do from the story. I can do sequence of events, blah, blah, blah. However, what we're trying to show you here, Jan, if you can just click on it for us, it's not going to bounce us outside of the presentation. You can just watch it simply right inside of the presentation.
One day, my mama caught me painting pictures on the floor. And the ceiling and the walls and the curtains and the door. And I heard my mama holler like I never did before. You ain't gonna paint no more.
So the whole, thank you, Jan. We won't sing the song. But the whole idea, teachers, is that you can just go to, if you're using a YouTube video, for example, and you go to the share button that is at the bottom of the video, it gives you some options in how you want to share it. For some, you can just copy the link and then you can share from the link and just embed it, just put the link and attach it to an object within your PowerPoint presentation. But that's plan B. For us, we strongly want to encourage that you follow plan A and that you actually embed that video straight onto your PowerPoint presentation. You just simply go to insert. Once you go to the YouTube video, you click on share. The word embed will come up as one of your options. Click embed. You just copy all of the embed coding that is there. Not only can you copy the coding, but you can play the video up until the point where you want it to start. So for example, it was 48 seconds of content prior to this actual video. It could have been the ads, it could have been a whole bunch of stuff. I played the video on YouTube up to where I wanted it to start. I then clicked on embed. There's a checkbox that you can select that allows you to embed from those particular seconds up to the rest of the video. I took the code from there, went into presentation, clicked on insert, and then I inserted my embed code. Okay, and so that way it allows me to have that actually sitting right there into the presentation. If not, your students will have to have the internet in order to then bounce into the YouTube page. Okay, all right, you can keep on going, Jam. So not only do we want to encourage you to embed it, I see that question, I'll come back to it. We want you to make sure that you have student checklist examples of everything that the child should anticipate should be inside of that lesson. That includes the materials. So if you look in the little speech bubbles that has the materials, there is a picture of pencils, because that's what I need them to have, and it's an actual picture of a worksheet, not any old worksheet. This example would have been the exact same worksheet that I would expect them to use, okay? And in the demo lesson that we've uploaded to YouTube, you will see that I just screen captured little pictures of the actual worksheets that we will be using, or the materials. The lesson length, be very clear to let them know how long it's going to take so that they and their parents can figure out how they're going to manage their time. Jen, if you can keep on advancing, we're going to go to email. If you have an email address and what days you're available for the email, make sure that is clearly stated on that particular slide, the days you're available, and your Zoom room. We talked about earlier, if they're going between multiple homes, there has to be a consistent slide on there that lets whoever the caregiver is made aware of how to access the teacher. Any manipulatives you're going to use, the parental support, I suggest that in an SPG world, in middle and primary school, not in high school, but we live in an SPG world, I would suggest that stuff like that Jan is showing should be placed on your learning intention and success criteria slide. That way, the parent knows that they can stay with the child up until that point of the presentation, and it'll let them know whether or not they need to stay for the duration of the presentation. So let's say that it was a lesson and I only had the X right there on the green circle. It will let the parent know that this is a session that you're going to need to give a lot of support. This actual idea is something that I use in my classroom for homework. When I send homework home, I use the same stoplight system. So this is just transferred over now onto this platform. So for homework, it also tells the level of independence, just in case you want to use that once we get back to class, if we eventually get there sometime soon. And then finally, the type of feedback that you're going to give. So you can see that the red circle came up over email. There's many different ways that feedback can be given. So as an example, I will put on that slide that for this particular presentation, then you're going to respond and get feedback via email. Okay? So you want to make sure that you have that. Now, Jan alluded to this a little earlier, I think Keish might have, that some of you might not be comfortable teaching live and recording your actual lessons. In the demo lesson that you see me actually teaching the lesson. Teachers, it's okay if you do not want to teach the lesson or you're uncomfortable with teaching the lesson. You can also embed within the presentation external videos that will teach the lesson for you. Okay, you can actually teach a lesson for you. So, Jan, if you could just launch this really quickly and we'll have a chance to see this.
2 in the tens place. 2 in the tens place. And now how many ones do I have? Well, I used to have 7. I took 1 away. Now I have 6 ones. So now I have 6 ones. So 2 tens and 6 ones, well, we call that 26. Now let's think about 27 minus 10. So once again, this is 27, 2 tens, and 7 ones. And now we're not going to take away any ones, but we're going to take away 1 10. let's just remind ourselves, a 10 is literally 110. I know that sounds like I'm saying the same thing over and over again, but I really want you to appreciate the place value. This is the tens place, and I have a 1 there. So I'm going to take away 1, 10, and 0 ones. So let's take away that 10. So let's take away, maybe I'll take this one away. I'll do it in a color that's easier to see. See? So I could take that away. And then what am I left with? How many tens am I left with? Well, now I only have one full group of 10. So I have 1.
So what we just wanted, thank you, Jan. What we wanted to demonstrate, teachers, is that if you are not comfortable actually conducting the lesson yourself, it's okay for you to use external videos in order to conduct the lesson. So don't let that be an inhibitor for you, okay? You actually see in the demo lesson, I made a mistake on something that I said in the lesson. It happens, right? And it's a free recording, but that's okay. Go ahead and try to, if you're comfortable with it, do it. And if you're not, bring in these pre-recorded lessons. So we want to leave you with this when it comes to working on what you want your actual lesson to look like. You want to work on consistency, making sure that all of the lessons follow the 3-part structure. If you need some more support around that, we are conducting, as Jan said, PD on that all this week. We have conducted it last week, and we will continue with some of those lessons next week. So if you want to look for that lesson, it's at 12:30 tomorrow, in case you're interested in finding out more about the 3-part lesson and how to create them. So we want to make sure we have that structure in place consistently. Jan said earlier, I'm reiterating, you want to be consistent with the norms and the system and the symbols, that you're going to use for every lesson. Be very consistent. Make sure that your instructions are simple and very easy to follow. Make sure that you send those instructions and you're communicating them through visual and spoken opportunities. Be consistent. If you have to bounce them to any external platforms, be very consistent with that. Instead of them going to this platform on Tuesday, that platform on Wednesday, be consistent with that. Make sure that you ensure that you meet all of the deadlines that you're giving them. Make sure that they are reasonable deadlines. When you create your lessons, it's really good if you can send them for the entire week. So let me tell you why that's important. Not only can students and parents map out the week, but you can also map out your week. So let's say, for example, that you're a parent, you have 3 children at home of your own that you need to be responsible for. If you create these asynchronous lessons ahead of time, you can send those lessons to them so that you can be spending time with your students, your son or daughter, while they're working on their synchronous lessons. You've already provided quality lessons for your students. So now you can put some time into your own children to ensure that they have your support while they're at home as well. So that's another reason. If you send it ahead of time, they can kind of map out their life, and so can you. The next one for consistency, is to make sure that you are very clear about when your office hours are going to be and when you're going to give feedback. And finally, make sure that you're always consistent with how you're going to send them the information and that they remain right there on that same platform or PowerPoint, that they're not bouncing all over the place when they are actually doing that. So Jan's going to talk to you about how you can record, and then we're going to do a quick reflection, and then we'll let you go.
All right, so in preparing to record, there are about 9 things that we want you to keep in mind. The first is to have your lessons prepared. We don't want you to be all over the place in the middle of your lesson as you're recording. Have your lesson prepared, know where you're going, know what you're going to do at every part of the week. Remember, have that 3-part lesson laid out properly. Tend to the background. We don't want a background when you're recording that's going to be distracting. We don't want confusion. We don't want chaos. We don't want people running all in the background. There are virtual backgrounds, if you're unaware of that you can actually use. There are ones that Tamisha talks about that have sparkly stars flying or whatever. And you can even change up your background based upon whatever content or concept you are actually teaching. So if you're doing history and you're talking about, I don't know, China or something, put up a background from China or something like that, just to keep the children engaged in what's happening. And then tomorrow they're going to wonder, oh, what background do they have today? Be aware of eye level. You want to make sure that your camera's not too high or too low down. I keep on saying this story, but when Tamisha was actually rehearsing with Keisha and I, her camera was a little bit low and we could only see probably from her mouth up. And so that's one of the things that she had to actually be aware of when she was recording, that when she actually went to do the real thing, that her camera was set properly. Okay, be dressed appropriately. I think that speaks for itself. Tend to the soundscape. Be sure that the area that you're recording from is quiet enough that it's not going to pick up all of the sounds. You don't want to have children running around at that time. I live in a house that's on Middle Road by the roadside, and it can get, you know, very busy with traffic. I'm a little bit immune to it, but other people coming into my space hear it a lot more than I do. So we want to be cognizant of this type of things that you don't want to have going on around you while you are recording. Be aware of your tone. You don't want to speak in a monotonous tone. You want to be excited about whatever it is that you're presenting so that the students are excited about learning. It's the same way in the classroom. It's even worse watching you if you're monitoring on video. They'll just shut down on you completely, okay? Be consistent, be consistent. We've talked about that. I know Tamisha and I have talked about that enough that you're probably tired of hearing it, but please be consistent with what it is that you are recording. Make sure you are in an area where you have a lot of light so that you are well lit and they can see you. It's important to see your facial expressions. It helps with relationship building and keeping that relationship. And practice, practice, practice. Tamisha will tell you that for her demonstration lesson, she practiced with Keisha and I, we gave her feedback. She sent it to someone else for feedback. She practiced even more on her own, so she didn't get it right the first time. So we're asking you to practice, practice, practice. We know it will get easier the more that you do, but the first time, be patient with yourself and expect that you're not going to get it right. Tamisha, did you want to speak to that?
Well, I just wanted to say that it was a new experience for me. It was a very steep learning curve. I also had the pressure of trying to make sure that it was a good enough lesson for you guys to watch because it's a demonstration lesson. But I would say this, that if I had a class in front of me, I would probably do more asynchronous because it allows you to kind of free up some of your planning time and your thinking time so that the lessons that you're doing are a lot more cogent, like they're a lot more specific and effective and intentional. So I would probably, if I had a class, which I wish I did because this is perfect time to be teaching, I would definitely probably use more of the pre-recording. One of the things I want to say, teachers, is make sure your mic's turned on. I recorded. I thought it was a fantastic lesson. It was 45 minutes long, and I went back to listen, and I had not pressed record. So with Zoom, you know, you just do a little practice, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, then stop your recording and then listen back to make sure that it sounds, you know, you got your mic turned up appropriately and all of that. And then you can go back in a new, you know, open up a new Zoom and then record. So that was very heartbreaking to me. I'm still trying to get over it. But yeah, make sure that your mic is turned on and that they can hear you as you're doing and delivering the wonderful lessons that you guys are actually going to do. All right, Jane, you want to take us quickly through the reflection?
Yes, ma'am. All right, so just in reflecting, these are the things we want you to walk away with. Less is more. We don't want the students overwhelmed. We don't want you to be overwhelmed, and we definitely don't want the parents to be overwhelmed. Give them the essentials. That's it. Not just a whole bunch of work for the sake of giving them work. So definitely less is more. Specify expectations, be very clear. Tamisha has already talked to the point that it should be dual expectations, instructions. You want to have them written, and you also want to say them verbally. Hold on, I'm just admitting someone to the room. And then also, we want you to be empathetic. We don't know what's going on in every home. I think we've spoken to this already. I think Keisha spoke to it, that maybe we have drawners because the technology issue. Maybe we have drawners because they're going through something emotionally. We just don't know what's happening, right? So we want to be very empathetic with what's going on. We can't control what's happening in households. We used to say, well, let's at least control what we can control in school. Now we don't have that control anymore. So we do have to be a lot more empathetic. Give explicit instructions. That speaks for itself. Communicate consistently. Keisha?
Mute yourself, Keish.
Yes, just so that. One thing, also be empathetic with ourselves.
And yeah, we're getting to that.
Okay.
So communicate consistently. Again, we want to keep that relationship, but that feedback is important, right, to the teaching cycle. And be online for office hours. So we've asked you to be fair to office hours, but please, if you have found that you're going to be online from 12 to 1 on Wednesday and Friday, it doesn't matter if nobody shows up, please be there, because there's going to be a time where somebody will show up and it's not going to look good on you because you're not there. So just be there for your office hours consistently. Seek student feedback. Find out, I think it was mentioned earlier, how are you faring with all of this? What's going on? How are you feeling? What's happening? Just find out, is this too much for you? Is it not enough for you? Some students may want more to do. Just seek student feedback from them. Boost learning retention. Identify lesson objectives. Middle and primary teachers, you know for a fact that we should be doing LISC, so we expect that continues even synchronously or asynchronously. So we want to identify those objectives. Be flexible. Things happen, so let's just continue to remain flexible and fluid. Be prepared. And lastly, extend grace. Please extend grace to yourselves most of all. We're not going to get it right the first time. Tamisha said it. She said, I already know that I've messed up in the recording, and it happens, right? Extend grace. Extend grace to the students. Extend grace to the parents. Extend grace to the principals. Extend grace, period, right? We're all trying to learn through this together, and nobody has been this way before, so we're asking that grace just be extended all around. I'm going to hand it back to Tamisha, and she's going to close it for us.
All right, so teachers, wow, you hung in there with us. Thank you so much. So you have some next steps that we would like for you to do. It's completely optional, but what we tried to do in these 2 hours was give you a lot of tools that you can use in order to be effective as you start to transition into maybe some asynchronous lessons instead of just the face-to-face ones that you've been given. So here's some next steps. So Jan, if you can pop that up for us, please. Some next steps. So far with those of you that have hung in with us for these 2 hours, we will make sure that you get 2 hours of professional development. And you can now also get an additional hour of professional development. We want you to go to YouTube once we finish this session of time that is conducive for you, because that's the beauty of asynchronous, right? It can be at a time that is available for you. We want you to go to Bermuda Asynchronous Demo Lesson. That's the YouTube link. Jan or Keish will also pop it inside of the chat. But we want you to go to Bermuda Asynchronous Demo Lesson, and we want you to watch the lesson. It is a demonstration lesson that I conducted. It's a primary 3 lesson on coin combinations and counting coins. In that lesson, I tried to include the 3 parts of a well-structured lesson. So some of you who've had that PD, hopefully you'll see it there. We've also tried to include opportunities around formative assessment. You also see opportunities in which I showed and demonstrated the student checklist, how to introduce the learning intention and success criteria, and how to clarify that. Opportunities for movement. So if you can click on for us, Jan. So you have a task after you watch that YouTube video, because that's the platform that I used to get it into your hands. Once you watch the lesson, you have 2 tasks. One task is to identify, how did I incorporate movement into the lesson? We talked about that in this session. That is really important to be able to do that. So how did I incorporate movement into the lesson? And then your second task is to list 2 ways that I had given the students assessments. I gave them 2 assessment tasks, and I want you to identify what are the 2 tasks that I actually get them to complete. And then once you've watched the video, once you've done those tasks, one, how did I incorporate movement, and what were the 2 assessment tasks that I required, then we want you to email your responses to sbg@moed.bm. So this is the whole feedback cycle. We're showing you and demonstrating the whole cycle to see if you can actually watch it, do it, and then we can give you some feedback. So we want you to email your responses to sbg@moed.bm and put in the subject line demo response. demo response. We hope that you can send that to us by May the 19th, and then we will go ahead and award the additional professional development hours. So you can actually get 3 hours from just being with us today. So hopefully you guys will find that helpful. If you have any questions or suggestions, then you can definitely go ahead and send it to us. And before we let you go, we're going to have one more chance to formatively assess and see how you guys are making out. So we started to assess prior knowledge at the beginning of the session with the mentee. Yes?
Sorry. I meant to ask, did you mention that you recorded your lesson via Zoom?
Oh, I can say that, yeah. So the lesson was recorded, yeah, as Jan said, via Zoom. It was just me, so I had to have a lot of energy. I didn't have anyone in front of me. I recorded it via Zoom, and then once it recorded, converted as an MP4, I simply just uploaded it to my YouTube channel. And so it was just as simple and as easy as that. Okay, so just make sure that you have all the materials that you need, do your practicing and all of that type of stuff, and then you can go ahead and upload it. So I actually recorded it, yes, via Zoom, and then later this week I'll be recording one via Loom so people can see how you can use both of those different platforms.
And just a quick thing about if you've never recorded a Zoom lesson, once you press record, it's going to ask you if you have the basic or you can only record on your computer. So once you finish recording, it's going to convert it to an MP4 file. It's going to go into your documents folder. And on the documents, you're going to see another folder that says Zoom, and then you'll find your document in there that you can upload.
No, that's fine. Thanks, Jan. So before we go, if you can just use the device that you tried before, and if you guys can go to menti.com. We're going to do the same exercise that we did earlier, but hopefully we'll be able to see a shift in your thinking or some additional thinking compared to what we saw the first time. So I think Jan's going to put up the original one for us so we can have a quick look at that to see what your thinking was. Remember, the word that was contributed the most is the word that's going to be in the center. It's going to be the biggest. So most of you thought originally that it was all about feedback. So that's how we got some, you can see feedback in the middle of your screen. So we want you to do the same thing. Go to mentimeter.com. Now, this time you're going to type in the code that Jan's going to pop up on the screen for us. We're going to have a different code. And then we want you to go ahead and submit your responses. So you, once again, listing 5 things that you think contribute to an effective asynchronous lesson. So here we go. Look at the word that's popping up now. Menti.com. Use the code 516570. So I'm going to go ahead and do mine as you guys are doing yours. Keep them coming. We have clear instructions, we have feedback, manageable tasks. I don't think we saw that earlier. So thank you for that. Tasks that can be completed in the lesson. Awesome movement. We didn't see that at the beginning of the lesson. So me as the teacher, I'm like, okay, so some teaching happened there. Fantastic. Differentiation. Awesome. Structured. Task completed in the lesson. Less is more. Wonderful. 3-part lesson. You guys are fantastic.
Love it.
Awesome. Clear instructions. Well structured. Timely instructions. Good. Keep them coming. Materials. Very important. Practice. Consistent format. Know your learners. Level of you guys make me want to cry. Level of parental support. This is great. Awesome. Good structure. Awesome. Let's see what else. Accessible platform. Repetition. Fantastic. But there's that consistency, right? So teachers, that's the main thing, because the world is all over the place. A lot going on. It's a lot going on with you. You'll notice that the consistency will also help you, because if you have your slides, that let's say your norm slides or your material slides, you don't have to keep on creating them and recreating them. Just change out some of the material. If you have your 3-part lesson structure, that's all you're doing is just changing things within the structure. You don't have to keep on reinventing the wheel. This is to make your life easier and their life easier, okay? So consistency is the key. Using visuals, clear instructions, practice, encouragement. I love that one. Engagement. Less is more. Okay, fantastic. Jan, thank you so much. You can move us on. Thank you so much, teachers, for that.
Yeah.
So before we let you go, and we're probably right on time. Yep, we have 2 more minutes. We want to give you a chance to do attendance. You'll see a QR code that's on your screen. You can simply just pop up your QR reader. All I'm doing is scanning the code, and then the link will pop up, and I'm just simply clicking on the link, and it will launch the actual attendance